The Grand Star Court of the Elorients was a place of power and great importance. The great hall was tall and wide, filled with shining light and cold stone walls. The Elorients, an alien race known for their sharp minds and strict laws, gathered. There to decide matters that could change the fate of many planets, Princess Lyra, the young heir to the Elorian throne, stood before the court. Her voice was steady as she gave her final testimony in a trial that had captured the attention of many species across the galaxy. The trial was about a dangerous conspiracy, one that threatened peace between several star systems. Around her, many officials and envoys listened carefully. Their faces were serious and full of worry. The Elorients prided themselves on justice and reason. But today something strange was about to happen. Among the crowd, a human stood quietly. Ethan Cole was his name. He was one of the few humans, trusted enough to work as a guard for the royal family. Humans were seen as rough and simple by many aliens, but Ethan had proven his worth through courage and quick thinking. He was watching closely, ready to act if needed. As Princess Lyra spoke her last words, suddenly her body froze. Her eyes blinked slower and slower until they closed. She collapsed forward, hitting the floor with a soft thud. The court gasped. In shock, guards rushed to catch her. Medics hurried from the back of the room with their strange devices. But their machines showed nothing clear. No injury, no poison, no illness. The princess was unconscious, but no one could say why. The trial stopped immediately. The council leader, a tall Elorian with silver skin named Varen, called for order. "This is most unusual," he said with a calm voice, but inside he was deeply troubled. "Bring her to the medical chambers at once. Find out what caused this sudden collapse." Ethan stayed close by. He looked around carefully. His eyes caught something odd, a small, shining pendant on the necklace of one of the alien envoys sitting near the princess. The envoy's hand had moved just before the collapse, brushing lightly against the princess's arm. The pendant glowed faintly. Ethan had no idea what it was, but his gut told him something was wrong. He felt a cold shiver run down his spine. The medics took Lyra away quickly, and the court was filled with whispers and uneasy looks. Many wondered if this was a trick or an attack. The trial was too important, and many enemies wanted it to fail. The council debated what to do next. Some wanted to cancel the trial and lock down the entire court. Others thought it was best to continue. But no one had answers. Ethan moved to speak, but the room was filled with doubt. "I think something strange happened here," he said firmly. "It was not just a faint or illness." The council leader raised an eyebrow. "Explain yourself." "Human." Ethan took a deep breath. "I saw the envoy near the princess. His pendant moved. I felt a shadow pass through the room right before she fell. It was like something invisible but real." The Elorians frowned. "Invisible shadows." "You speak like a child telling stories. We have sensors and scanners. Nothing shows." Ethan shook his head. "Not all things can be seen by machines. Some things you must feel." A murmur spread through the court. Some envoys sneered at the human guard's words. They did not trust humans. Humans were considered wild and untrained, lacking the calm logic of other species. But Ethan did not care. His training and experience had taught him to trust his instincts, and his instincts said the princess was in danger. Later, as the court slowly emptied, Ethan stayed behind. He quietly looked over the room again. The pendant caught his eye once more. He moved closer and saw a tiny symbol engraved on its surface, a symbol that no one in the court seemed to recognize. Suddenly the lights flickered for a moment. Ethan froze. For a brief second, the room seemed to ripple, like a heat wave on a hot day.
Ow.
The air grew cold, and Ethan's skin prickled. He closed his eyes and felt a strange sensation, a whisper in his mind. Quiet fear. When he opened his eyes, everything looked normal again. But Ethan knew something was not right. He walked to the princess's chambers. The door was guarded, but the captain nodded and let him in. Inside, the room was quiet and dim. Princess Lyra lay on a soft bed, pale and still. Ethan knelt beside her and gently touched her hand. Her skin was cold. The medics had no answers, but Ethan noticed something else. Black dust scattered on her clothes. It looked like tiny crystals. Ethan picked up one of the crystals and felt a sharp sting in his mind. Suddenly he saw flashes of imagosphere, screams, darkness closing in. He pulled back quickly, shaking his head. "What is this?" whispered. He knew this was no ordinary illness. Something invisible, something dangerous, was attacking the princess. The next day, the court gathered again. The trial was paused, but the council was nervous. Some envoys avoided Ethan's eyes. Others whispered in corners. Ethan stood ready. He was determined to find the truth, no matter what. The princess's life and the fate of the empire depended on it. And somewhere in the shadows, dark power waited, ready to strike again. The day after Princess Lyra's sudden collapse, the Grand Star Court was filled with tension. The trial was paused, but the worry was everywhere. The high officials spoke quietly in groups, casting suspicious looks at each other. Everyone wanted answers. But the Elorian medics still could not find a cause for the princess's strange illness. Ethan Cole stood near the court's entrance, watching the crowd. The humans were few in this alien empire, and many did not trust them. Some officials whispered that humans were primitive and too emotional to understand serious matters. But Ethan knew he was the only one who could see what the others missed. "Human," said one sharp voice behind him. It was Counselor Varn, a stern Elorian who did not like Ethan's interference. Stories about invisible shadows and strange feelings are nonsense. The court relies on facts and evidence, not wild guesses. Ethan turned calmly. "Counselor, I respect your laws. But facts are sometimes hidden. I have seen things that machines cannot detect. Want to help? Find the truth." Varn narrowed his eyes. "Very well. You have one chance. Find proof of your claims, or stay silent." Ethan nodded. He knew this was his only chance. Ethan began his investigation by interviewing the court members who were near Princess Lyra at the time of her collapse. He spoke with guards, envoys, and attendants. Most had no clear answers. Some said they felt dizzy or confused. A few had memory gaps about the exact moments before the collapse. Ethan noticed these gaps carefully. To him, they were signs that something had affected their minds. But the Elorian sensors showed no interference. He returned to the princess's chambers and examined the strange black crystals on her clothes again. He had taken one sample with him for study. When he touched it, the sharp mental sting returned. The crystal seemed to carry a dark power. Ethan remembered old human stories about shadows and spirits. Maybe these crystals were like a poison, but invisible and silent. Meanwhile, the Elorian scientists worked with their advanced machines. Trying every test on Princess Lyra, they measured her brain waves, her energy fields, and even scanned for alien viruses. But all results were normal. "How can this be?" asked one scientist, shaking her head. "No known illness can cause such sudden collapse without leaving any trace." Ethan entered the lab quietly. "Sometimes the truth is not in what we know, but in what we don't understand," he said. One young scientist looked at him with curiosity. "What do you mean, human?" Ethan explained. "On Earth, some things cannot be seen or measured, but they are real. Fear, memories, even some forms of energy can hide from machines. Maybe something like that attacked the princess." The scientist frowned but nodded slowly. "Perhaps. But how do we find something invisible?" Ethan smiled. "We use old ways and new tools together." Back in the court, Ethan gathered more clues. He found that 3 other high officials had collapsed suddenly in the last year, each during important trials. Each case was quietly closed and blamed on energy overload. But Ethan believed these were all connected. He told Ira, Princess Lyra's loyal handmaiden, about his theory. Ira was a quiet but brave woman who trusted Ethan's instincts. "Then we must act quickly," she said. "Princess is in danger." Ira gave Ethan access to the princess's personal records. He read about strange dreams Lyra had, visions of darkness, whispers in empty rooms, and feelings of being watched. These shadows are real, Ethan thought, and they are getting stronger. One night, Ethan decided to set a trap. He could not rely on the Elorian machines, so he used human ideas. He placed energy scanners around the princess's chamber and scattered salt in a circle on the floor. Salt was an old human trick, believed to block evil spirits. The Elorians laughed when Ethan told them, but he was determined to try. Ethan waited in the dark room, watching the scanner's lights carefully. Hours passed in silence. Suddenly a chill filled the air. The scanners blinked wildly. Ethan saw a thin, shadowy figure moving near the princess's bed. It was hard to see, but he could feel its dark presence. Ethan raised a small device he had built, a light that shone in ultraviolet rays and a speaker that emitted a high-pitched sound. The shadow hissed and recoiled, then vanished in a swirl of black smoke. Ethan breathed heavily. He had proof. Something real and dangerous was attacking the princess. The next morning, Ethan told the council about his discovery. He showed them the scanner's data and described the shadow creature he saw. Some council members still doubted him. "This sounds like superstition," said Councillor Varnigan. "We need proof, not stories." But others were curious. Princess's health was important, and they could not ignore the strange scanner results. Ira stood up and said, "I believe Ethan. I have seen the princess suffer in ways no medicine can explain." The council voted to allow Ethan to continue his investigation with limited support. Ethan's mind raced with new questions. What was this shadow? How could it attack the princess without being seen? And while reviewing old court records, Ethan found a note about a rare alien species called the Shadow Specters. These beings were said to feed on fear and life energy. Most species could not see or detect them, but humans might be able to. Ethan shared this with Ira. "This fits everything," she said. "The princess is their target." Ethan prepared for more investigation, knowing the danger would come. Again, days passed quietly, but Ethan felt the dark presence growing closer. One evening, as he stood guard outside the princess's room, he suddenly felt the same chill and saw a faint ripple in the air. The shadow specter appeared again, an invisible, dark shape hovering near the bed. Ethan did not run. He held up his UV light and turned on the high-pitched sound device. The specter screamed, a horrible sound that filled the room. He tried to move past Ethan but was stopped by the salt circle. Ethan's heart pounded, but he stood firm. Never faced anything like this before. But his human spirit would not give up. When the specter fled, Ethan noticed something else, a soft whisper inside his mind. The voice was cold and cruel. "She is marked for death. Stop me if you can, human." Ethan shivered but knew he must fight. The princess's life depended on it. The court was no longer a place of calm laws. It was a battlefield of fear and unknown dangers. But in this alien empire, one human guard stood between darkness and light. Ethan Cole was ready to prove that sometimes human instincts and courage are the strongest weapons of all. After the terrifying encounter with the Shadow Specter, Ethan knew the danger was real and close. He had seen the invisible enemy that haunted Princess Lyra, but the court was still divided. Many refused to believe in such creatures. To them, Ethan was just a human guard telling strange stories. Yet, Ethan was determined. He could not let the princess die. He would find the truth, even if no one believed him. Ethan started by studying the black crystals found on Lyra's clothes. Again, he showed the crystals to a trusted scientist named Mira. Mira was young and open-minded, and unlike many others, she wanted to help. "Ethan," she said, "I have never seen crystals like these. They don't match any known mineral or substance." Mira ran tests in her lab. She used machines to scan the crystal's energy patterns. The results were strange. The crystals seemed to store fear itself, a dark energy that grew stronger when people were scared. "This is dangerous," Mira said quietly. "If these crystals are near the princess, they might be draining her life force." Ethan nodded. "I think they come from the Shadow Specters. These creatures feed on fear and life energy." The court was not safe. Ethan told Mira that the princess was a target, but he did not know why. Then a new question came to his mind. Who had invited or helped these creatures? They could not enter the court alone. Ethan decided to watch the people close to the princess carefully. He studied the alien envoys again, especially the one with the pendant, the same one he had seen near Lyra before the collapse. The pendant was unusual. It glowed with a dark light, and the symbol on it was strange. No one could explain it. Ethan kept his eyes on the envoy. The man was quiet and calm, but Ethan felt something cold in his presence. One day, when the court was empty, Ethan found the envoy standing alone in a corridor. The man wore a long cloak that hid his face. Ethan stepped forward and said, "I know about the pendant. What is its purpose?" The envoy did not answer, but gave a small smile. "You humans are curious creatures," Ethan said. "This is a warning. The princess is in danger. Stop whatever you are doing." The envoy's smile grew darker. "You are brave, human, but you do not understand the forces you face." Suddenly, the envoy disappeared in a flash of light. Ethan stood alone, his heart pounding. He knew the envoy was the key to the mystery. That night, Ethan shared his findings with Ira, the princess's handmaiden. She listened carefully. "Someone inside the court is working with these shadow specters," Ethan said. "They want to kill the princess and destroy the empire." Ira's eyes widened. "But who? Who would betray us like this?" Ethan shook his head. "I don't know yet, but I will find out." Ethan made a plan. He needed to catch the enemy in the act. He would use a trick, something the Allorians never thought of. Human creativity, he decided to set a trap during the next court meeting. The princess would return to the hall, and the trial would continue. But Ethan would prepare for the shadow specter to attack again. He placed his UV lights and sound devices around the court chamber. He asked the guards to stay alert but keep calm. Ira helped him hide small sensors and salt traps near the princess's seat. The day of the trial arrived. The court was full of tension. The princess was still weak, but determined to stand. Many envoys watched her with hidden fear. Ethan stood ready, watching the room carefully. He felt the cold air and watched the lights flicker. Suddenly, the shadow specter appeared again. This time it was larger, more terrifying, a dark shape with glowing eyes. The court gasped in horror. The invisible enemy was now visible, thanks to Ethan's devices. The specter moved quickly toward the princess. Ethan shouted now. The guards activated the traps. Salt circles flared with energy, and high-pitched sounds filled the room. The specter screamed in pain and anger. It tried to fight the light and sound, but weakened. Ethan fired his UV light directly at the creature, burning its shadowy form. The court watched in awe. They had never seen anything like this before. Just as the specter was about to vanish, voice echoed in the chamber. "I see you have found my little secret," said the cloaked envoy, stepping forward. The council gasped. The envoy raised his hand, and the pendant glowed bright. The specter's strength returned for a moment, and it attacked Ethan. Ethan felt a cold hand try to enter his mind. He fought back with all his will. Using his hybrid weapon, Ethan pushed the specter away. The envoy laughed coldly. "You cannot stop me. The princess will fall, and the empire will crumble." The court was shocked. The envoy was not just a guest, he was the mastermind behind the attacks. Ethan stood tall. "You are wrong. Humans may be simple, but we have strength no machine can measure. We have heart and courage." The specter screamed as Ethan's light burned it. The envoy snarled, but knew the fight was lost for now. He vanished in a flash, leaving the pendant behind. Ethan picked up the pendant. It was warm in his hand and pulsed with dark energy. He knew this was proof. The envoy's people were behind the attacks, using dark creatures to kill the princess. The trial stopped again. The court was shaken, but for the first time, many looked at Ethan with respect. Princess Lyra's life was saved for now. But the war was far from over. Ethan and Ira prepared for what came next. They knew the enemy would return stronger, but Ethan was ready. He had seen the hidden enemy and would fight to protect the princess and the empire, because sometimes a simple human guard is the strongest hero. After the shocking reveal of the cloaked envoy as the mastermind behind the Shadow Specter's attacks, the Grand Star Court was in chaos. Many council members were afraid. The invisible enemy was real, and where someone close was working against them, Princess Lyra remained weak, but her spirit was strong. She looked to Ethan Cole, the human guard who had saved her and exposed the danger. For the first time, the council was forced to listen to Ethan seriously. They gave him temporary authority to deal with the threat. It was a big change. Humans were usually guards and servants, but now Ethan was leading the fight. Ethan knew this was his chance. He quickly gathered what he needed. First, he worked with the Elorian scientists, combining their advanced energy sensors with his own human tools, simple things like salt barriers, UV light, and high-frequency sound devices. Your machines can scan energy, Ethan told the scientists, but they cannot detect fear or dark shadows. A human senses can. Together we can catch the enemy. The scientists were skeptical, but curious. They agreed to help. Ethan also trained the human and Elorian guards, showed them how to use the salt traps and light devices. He taught them to watch not just with their eyes, but with their instincts. Fight with your mind and your heart, Ethan said. This enemy is not like any we've faced before. The guards listened carefully. Many were inspired by Ethan's confidence. Meanwhile, Ethan worked closely with Princess Lyra and her handmaiden, Ira. They discussed the next trial session, knowing the enemy would try again. Lyra was determined. I will not hide or run, she said. The Empire must see that fear will not rule us. Ethan admired her courage. I will protect you, no matter what. The day of the resumed trial arrived. The court was filled with tension. Everyone waited, knowing the Shadow Spectre could attack at any moment. Ethan took his place near the princess. Around the chamber, his traps were set. Salt circles glowed faintly, and hidden UV lights were ready. The Elorian Council watched with a mix of hope and fear as the trial began. The enemy struck. The air grew cold, and the lights flickered. Suddenly, the Shadow Spectre appeared again, larger and more terrifying than before. It moved quickly toward the princess. Ethan acted fast. He turned on the UV lights and sound devices. The specter screamed and twisted in pain. Right! It fought to reach. Lyra Butt was stopped by the salt traps. The court gasped as the specter was revealed, fully its dark, shadowy form with glowing eyes. The battle was fierce. The specter tried to escape, but Ethan chased it. He used every tool, light, sound, and salt to weaken the creature. The court saw something new: human courage and cleverness. The Elorian guards fought alongside Ethan, inspired by his example. But just when they thought the specter was defeated, the cloaked envoy appeared again. He raised the pendant, glowing with dark energy. The specter grew stronger and launched a final attack. Ethan stood firm. The specter tried to possess his mind, but Ethan's strong human will fought back, using his hybrid weapon, a device mixing Elorian technology with human ideas. Ethan blasted the specter with a powerful beam of light. The specter screamed and vanished in a flash. The envoy was left alone, furious and defeated for now. Ethan stepped forward and shouted, "Your plans have failed. The Empire will stand." The envoy snarled but vanished into shadows. The court was silent, then erupted in cheers. Princess Lyra smiled weakly and said, "Thanks to the human guard, we have hope." The council nodded. They had learned an important lesson: that technology alone could not protect them. Ethan's human spirit, stubbornness, and creativity had saved the day. He looked at the princess and said, "This is just the beginning. We must be ready." The Grand Star Court was calm for the first time in many days. But beneath this calm, the threat still lingered. Ethan Cole, the human guard, knew the enemy was not gone. The cloaked envoy was still out there, hiding in the shadows, planning his next move. Princess Lyra had recovered slowly. She was weak, but determined to stand again for the Empire. The trial was to continue soon, and the whole court was watching closely. Ethan studied the glowing pendant he had taken from the envoy. It pulsed with dark energy, strange and powerful. He took it to Mira, the young scientist who had helped him before. Mira examined the pendant carefully. This is no simple jewel, she said. It is a control device. Whoever holds it can command the shadow specters. Ethan nodded. Then the envoy species is using these creatures to attack the Empire. We must find the envoy, Mira said, and stop him before he strikes again. Ethan and Ira worked together to search for clues about the envoy's origin. They discovered that he came from a distant star system, known for enemies of the Elorians. The envoy's people were jealous of the Empire's power. They wanted to see it fall. The council agreed to send a special team to capture the envoy. Ethan was asked to lead the mission. It was dangerous, but he accepted without hesitation. This mission is more than just saving the princess, Ethan said. It is about protecting all who believe in peace. The team traveled to a cold planet where the envoy was last seen. The planet's surface was rocky and covered in shadows, perfect for hiding dark creatures. Ethan and his team moved carefully. The air was thick with tension. Suddenly, they were attacked by more shadow specters. The creatures hissed and moved, quickly trying to overwhelm the team, but Ethan's hybrid weapons and human courage gave them the upper hand. They fought bravely and pushed the specters back. At last, they reached the envoy's stronghold, a tall tower made of black stone. Inside, the envoy waited. He was angry and powerful, surrounded by dark energy. "I warned you, human," he said. "You cannot stop what is coming." Ethan stepped forward. "We stop it here." A fierce battle began. The envoy used the pendant to summon specters and cast dark spells. But Ethan's human will was strong. He dodged attacks and used his hybrid weapon to blast the envoy's defenses. The fight was long and hard. Ethan felt the specter's darkness trying to invade his mind. He remembered the princess's faith in him and did not give in. With a final burst of light from his weapon, Ethan struck the envoy. The dark energy shattered, and the envoy fell to the ground. Defeated. The team secured the envoy and destroyed the tower's dark power sources. Ethan returned to the Grand Star Court, the envoy prisoner. The trial resumed, and the threat was gone. Princess Lyra stood before the court, stronger than before. She looked at Ethan and said, "You saved my life and the Empire. Your courage showed us that humans are more than guards. You are heroes." The council agreed and praised Ethan for his bravery. In the end, the Empire learned a great lesson. Technology alone could not win every fight. Sometimes the heart, courage, and creativity of a human were the greatest power. Ethan smiled, knowing that his people had earned respect, and he was ready for whatever future awaited humanity in the stars.